featuring the people who make York special and the organisations doing amazing things.
The people who work in the factory are very, very proud of the fact that this is the home of Kit Kat.
A fair number of women say that Kira has saved their lives, so we know we make a big difference.
I love being a part of that business community, and I love being able to help other businesses within it as well.
From tourism and history to business, charity and the arts.
We live in a city that was designated as a UNESCO City of Media Arts, and the impact of that and what it means should not be underestimated.
We are as equally important in the history of this country as London is and as Oxford is.
We want to be seen as the best city in the UK. The people of York are proud of their city.
This is Between These Walls, a podcast for York with Sophie Hudson. Hello, I am delighted to be back with another episode of Between These Walls, especially because this episode is with someone that I wanted to meet for such a long time, simply because nearly every person that I've already interviewed on the podcast said that I needed to get Cherie Federico on. So we finally got the chance to sit down over the summer and catch up. Now, Cherie Federico is the Director of Aesthetica, which you may have heard of Aesthetica Magazine, which operates out of the centre of York, or if you've driven around the city, particularly this time of year, you may start to see the signs and the flags up for the Aesthetica Short Film Festival. You may have also heard of the Reignite movement. We're going to talk a little bit about this, which is spearheaded by Cherie and is essentially banging the drum for York's UNESCO City of Media Arts status. Now, Cherie also launched the Creative Business Skills Academy this summer, and we recorded this interview just before that launched. I mean, we cover a lot of stuff in this episode. And we're also going to hear from two artists as well. Steve Messam, who has a great long-standing relationship with Aesthetica and the magazine and the city itself, and Larry Achumpong, who won the Aesthetica Art Prize. Both really great guys to hear from, and it was an absolute pleasure to speak with them and talk about Aesthetica and what it means for York as a city. And it's all really interesting and proves that York is firmly on the global map for the arts and creative world. But we're going to start by delving into Aesthetica Magazine and its humble beginnings. So without further ado, here is Cherie Federico.
Aesthetica is many things, and I think when you have run an organization for, it's 21 years actually, you know, you diversify and you grow and you develop the organization, and in over the years, we've come to do most things that you could define as, media arts and in the creative industry. So I suppose the backbone of the company is Aesthetica Magazine. So that launched, the first issue was published in March 2003. So I'm originally from New York, and I came here to study. And when I was studying, I decided to set up this magazine with our co-founder, Dale Donnelly. Can't forget him. Still co-director of the company. But I had done an internship in New York for a magazine. It wasn't a big publication, but what I realized was that I found my calling. I thought publishing is really for me. This is great. I love it. And when I came to York, so imagine, 2003, the world was a different place then. And actually, when I came here, I really wanted to do an internship for a magazine. And because Google was new, the idea of just Google it wasn't really a thing. So I didn't actually think to even look at publications in other cities or beyond York. But there wasn't anything here. And so I spent 6 months really sort of pining for continuing to learn more about the publishing industry. There's the local newspaper, and that was really about it. And so it was a Sunday in November. It was actually November 2002. I said, today's the day I'm going to start a magazine. And it's really innocent and grassroots and really sweet. I made some posters that said, do you write? Do you draw? I cycled around the entire city, and I mean everywhere. I didn't even know fly posting was a thing, because I just put these posters up literally everywhere. And, set up an email account and just waited to see if anybody emailed me. And by the time I got home, after spending a day hanging up posters, I had 3 emails. And I was like, right, we're away. And so the first issue was published in March 2003. Now, the magazine now is commissioned, and it operates very, very differently to how it did in 2003. It's really quite exciting to think about the journey that has come, because publishing is, print has obviously been, described as being in decline, but actually Aesthetica is bucking that trend, and we have done, consistently. Basically that moment of change starts in 2007 when the iPhone is released. But actually, we've continued to be published the magazine consistently since then. But that's because I believe a magazine is an experience. And so every reader of the publication picks up that magazine and they get something truly unique. It's not a publication that there's nothing else like it on the shelves. So if we fast forward to those early grassroots days of me cycling around hanging up posters, we go to today, it's the magazine's distributed in 900 stores in the UK. That's WH Smith High Street, WH Smith Travel. It's distributed on the Eurostar. It's distributed in JP Morgan, HSBC head offices. We're expanding into Booth supermarkets, which is in Cumbria. We're actually expanding into one-stop shops. So your local, when you go to get your milk, you can pick up a copy of Aesthetica. It's really exciting. I think that's because the magazine is accessible. And that, I think, I'm very much aware that I work in an industry that could be perceived as elitist, but actually I think I've spent my entire working career trying to break those barriers down, because actually art and culture is life and leisure, and it's kind of what binds us together as humans. It helps us make sense of the world in which we live. It gives us hope, aspiration, dreams, and so I think everything begins with the magazine, and all of the different endeavors that we've done have all grown out of it. And that's because maybe we made some changes in the magazine, and, particularly in terms of the Aesthetica Art Prize, the Aesthetica Creative Writing Award, and even the film festival, they've all come out of the magazine.
It's amazing to think that this is here in York, because I think most people would assume, you immediately think a publication like this would be based in London. What was your thinking when you first started it? Were you thinking York is the right place, or was it just the fact that you were here? Did you ever think that you were going to move it away from York and go down south into sort of what would be considered the hub of creative arts, perhaps?
Well, I was 22, so I didn't think that far ahead. But we did actually in 2006. We made the decision that we were going to move to London, and we were going to get offices in the old Truman Brewery, and I'd already been to look at them, and that we had made the decision that it was going to be too difficult to try and do a national publication from the north. And but let me tell you what happened. And this is like, I love these sliding doors moments. I love how one thing in life leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing. And this is just one of those moments where, it's kind of like a decision changes the course and the direction that you move in forever. I won the Young Business Entrepreneur of the Year award. Bless. I mean, it was like, I didn't think I was going to win. The company, we'd obviously been trading for, at that point, maybe 3 years. And I did win. And what that did for us locally was it brought a lot of attention to the magazine. People still wouldn't believe that a national publication focusing on art and lens-based media could come out of York. I mean, it's taken a long time to break that barrier down. But because we won it, I was actually able to secure some really decent office accommodation. A lot of people reached out to see how they could get involved. And so actually I decided that it would be a bad decision to leave York. And so we canceled the whole thing. We thought, actually, we're going to stay here. I mean, our employees were here. We didn't have many employees back then, but, we thought, actually, let's give this a good go here. And I mean, I'm so glad that we stayed, because actually Aesthetica Film Festival wouldn't be what it is if it weren't in York. The Aesthetica Art Prize, the fact that we do this, we bring amazing contemporary cutting edge artwork to the city, which is known for its history, but we are joining, it's like that marriage of the historic and the contemporary. It's allowed me the freedom and flexibility to do things that I probably wouldn't have had the chance to do if I were in London. I would have been absorbed by the city of London, where actually here we can make an impact. So I think, here to stay is the conclusion of that.
I love that. I love that you were considering moving to London. You were almost going to do it and then didn't. And then look what's happened. Like you say, it wouldn't be what it is today.
No.
If it had moved. Testament really to the city and the kind of culture here and the way that I think the city embraces art, not just history. Everyone thinks it is a historical city, but then the arts, the culture, the media arts as well. I mean, it's a huge part, intrinsically sort of intertwined with York, isn't it?
I think York can be a canvas. It can be a canvas for what you want to do. I mean, it's small enough, like it's a human-sized city, and that's, you can easily get from one side to the next in 10 to 15 minutes. During the day, it's pedestrianized. I mean, this is why the film festival works so well here, because, it has such a big impact on the city center, because there's people walking around from all of our gorgeous locations, watching independent film. And so, actually, nobody has to get on a bus and travel across to the other side of the city, that you can just easily walk. And along the way, you can stop and have a nice coffee somewhere. So it's just the city is I don't know, it's just perfect for this type of industry. It's perfect for this type of activity. I think it's this cool northern town. That's where we are. That's where we live. We live in a very cool northern town that's got so many components of it absolutely right. That's not to say that there still isn't work to be done in the creative industries. There's a lot that needs to be done, but it's happening. And actually, I feel like the plate tectonics are shifting here. And I feel like we're in a considerable moment of change in the city. People are excited. I feel like we're, turning a corner for how the creative industries and media arts are being embraced, and how actually the wider business community, and that is actually the linchpin here, the wider business community can understand and see the impact that this sector has on other businesses. That actually, I've been calling for a long time, the initiative I started, Reignite. I say a long time. I mean, I really only launched it with partners in September, so it's not that long at all. But it is looking at the creative industries as a business, the same as retail, hospitality, transport, services, that actually we operate in the same way. We all rely on supply and demand. I need customers just as much as a cafe does. And so thinking about that in the context of what that can do for the local economy, it's pretty considerable.
Between These Walls is a podcast just for York. We want to keep it growing and provide more local content that you want to hear. So there are 3 ways you can help. Firstly, I'm on the lookout for local sponsors. If you're from a York business and want to promote on this podcast, drop us an email to btw@soapyproductions.co.uk. That's btw@soapy, SOAPY, productions.co.uk. Secondly, if you know someone who should be featured on Between These Walls, let me know. I'm looking for the people who make York special. That's anyone from an interesting business or with an unusual story, perhaps a charity doing amazing things, or someone working hard under the radar to make York better. Let me know who I need to talk to. Just email btw@soapyproductions.co.uk. And finally, you can help this podcast grow right now by subscribing. Wherever you're listening, just hit the subscribe button, and that helps us out massively. Also, follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn if you just search for Between These Walls York. Thank you. Now back to the conversation. Let's talk about the Aesthetica Art Prize, how that came to be, really, because it's kind of a bit of a juggernaut in the arts world, I would say.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I mean, obviously, the biggest accolade that we had this year is that we were recommended as one of the top exhibitions by Jonathan Jones, the art critic, a very famous art critic at The Guardian. And it was fantastic to be, for York and the Aesthetica Art Prize, to be recognized in a national newspaper for one of the shows that people should travel from around the UK and they should come to York and they should see this exhibition. So that's kind of how we finished off this year. That's really on a high. It's a really fantastic recognition to get. The Aesthetica Art Prize grew from the magazine, and that's why I describe the magazine as the backbone, really, because everything started from that. So if we look at the trajectory, so from issue 1, we were distributed in Borders. So if anybody remembers Borders, Borders, they went in 2008. So, but we started being distributed in there in 2003. We got our distribution in Borders because I walked into the store. I said to the periodicals manager, how do I get stocked in here? And he said, well, I shouldn't do this, but here's the number for the buyer in London. You need to call them. I was like, thank you. And so I called the buyer. He said, send me a sample copy. I sent him a sample copy. I called him a week later. He said, I love it. We're going to stock it nationwide. So it was really just a simple case of asking. And then 2007 was a big moment because that's when we got our W.H. Smith distribution. And that was really a turning point for the editorial content. And so that is like the Aesthetica Art Prize. The inception of that started in 2007 because as the magazine was gaining more distribution, we were having a slightly different slant on like the types of exhibitions we were writing about, what we were covering. And so there became less opportunities in the magazine for new practitioners. And so I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we published a book annually called The Creative Works? And that was like 100 recommended artists. Actually, with 100 recommended artists and writers. And so because we had some creative writing in there. And it was a really nice publication. We did that for 5 years. And then I got the book back. So it would have been like 2011. And I thought, there needs to be more here. This isn't enough. We need to change this. I'm not happy with how this is going. So I spoke to the then chief executive of York Museums Trust. She was Janet Barnes, and said, look, I got this great idea. I want to turn this into an actual exhibition. And, she supported the idea. And this is it. This is why York is special, because you can meet with the chief executive of the York, the major public gallery in the city, and that's possible in a city of this size. And so the first exhibition opened in 2012, and that was at York St. Mary's. Love York St. Mary's. And since then, it has grown considerably, and the caliber of artists. I mean, people that get involved with us, they go on to win major awards and commissions. People have been awarded things by Magnum. They've been gained exhibitions at the V&A, Whitechapel, MoMA in New York. They've won FOAM, which is in Amsterdam. It's a major European photography organization. FOAM Talent Awards. I mean, it's just this fantastic coming together of people, ideas, and innovation from across the world. And again, we do that here in York at York Art Gallery, and it's phenomenal. And I feel really humbled and honored that I have the opportunity to engage with so many people around, and they trust us with their work and installing it, and we can put on an exhibition, which we refer to as Future Now, the Aesthetica Art Prize, and we're looking at everything that is what it means to be a human in the 21st century. And that to me is very exciting, because those are conversations that we all need to have, especially with the rush and the pace of everyday life. You need to be able to stop for a minute, and you need to be able to think about what's going on around you and talk to someone about it. So, yeah, it's really exciting. And actually in 2025, the exhibition is going to expand. We're going to take, it'll be over the entire 3 galleries on the lower floor of York Art Gallery. We want to do some new commissioning. We want to do a teenage art school. We want to have a new media lab. So there are plans to grow and develop it even further, which is exciting.
My name is Larry Achampong. I am an artist. I work across a range of forms that include sculpture, film. I work with paint. I work with objects in general, performance. I work with installations minimally, or the opposite to that. Like I work with people, and then quite individually. The work for me always is mutating. So context is everything. But at the heart of the practice, I'm interested in conversations around the multiplicities of identity, how they relate to our current age, the digital age of sorts, but how that also connects to history, both stories told and untold, questions around agency, urgency, power, its relationship to gender, race, class. My work is a constantly evolving kind of set of microcosms, really. And So I won the Aesthetica Art Prize, the main art prize 2023, for my artwork, a film titled Wayfinder. It's actually my first long form film, so feature length. It actually wasn't supposed to be a feature length film. The film centers the journeys of a young black girl who finds herself at the beginning of the film as far north within England as possible, kind of like Bowness and Solway, Hadrian's Wall, and across 6 chapters within 6 different environments, essentially makes her way down south eventually to Kent. And the feeling of getting the award, I know it sounds like a cliche when people say, I was shocked or whatever, but I really was, to the point that I'll be honest with you that I booked an early train to get home. In terms of like the awards, I wanted to make sure to be present for whoever it was that won, and give the round of applause and what have you, just kind of give that decorum and respect. And then like my name was mentioned, I was like, I'm someone who's good at like talking, but for a moment, like I just couldn't kind of speak. And good friend of mine and collaborator, Nefertiti Aboshi-Shandorf, who's produced a lot of my films and co-produced Wayfinder amongst other films, was there, and I was just hugging her for what just felt like ages. It was it was a beautiful shock. It really was. Of course it was. Like, it was to win something in competition like this that I hadn't won before was, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to, and also in terms of like my background, like I didn't grow up with the privileges of like going to museums as a kid. I come from a low economic background, experienced poverty, like growing up in East London and also in Essex. So to come in as, a wild card, essentially, if you look at the lay of the land, like the creative arts. Yeah, it was emotional. It was emotional. Thinking about, Aesthetica and, what Cherie and her amazing team have done over the decades, really. I knew about the magazine when I studied, BA in mixed media fine art, like started that 21 years ago now. And, that magazine for me, like it kind of like epitomized, what was hot, the creme de la creme, like the real interesting things that are happening, that are going down. I wasn't aware until like, many years later that, Cherie had built that from the ground up, and the fact that in that respect, it somewhat has its foot a bit outside of the art scene, right? And has its foot within the creative industries, just in general. So for example, last year within their film festival, they introduced gaming for the first time, so they have a connection with that. A relationship with film, a relationship with fashion, with photography, this kind of thing. To know that there's to know that my work is gaining a kind of traction and interest and recognition artistically in a much broader sense than simply just the gallery space. That means a lot to me. My interest down the line for the legacy of my work is for it to be able to permeate beyond gallery spaces. I think gallery spaces are really interesting and intriguing environments. But, if even just thinking about the nature of the Aesthetica magazine, it's its own kind of world. You know what I mean? There aren't, in my opinion anyway, there aren't other magazines really like it. For me, I can literally just sit within it and just sit with an image for a while. So, on that level, in terms of it being something of a different environment than your typical kind of like art scene kind of, occupied space, that meant a lot to me. I mean, of course, like the money, again, having spoken about my my background, like physically, like it means a lot to be able to look after my mum, to be able to look after my kids and my parent, to look after folk that I'm responsible to, that is, of course, a great deal.
I'm Steve Messam. I'm an artist and I'm based in rural County Durham, and I make temporary installations that play with landscape and architecture. So I make really big things. I make artwork at scale. The scale is usually bigger than a house, and that's how I usually describe it. Scale became quite interesting because there is something that happens with scale that doesn't happen with a painting or a sculpture, where you stand in front of something which is bigger than a house, and you get an emotional response that you don't get standing in front of a painting. It's a different emotional response standing in front of a painting, but you stand something in front of an artwork, an installation which is the size of a house, you feel it. There's an emotional response that you get from that, for being in the presence of it. And you don't get that from a photo. You have to be there and be with it. And that really interests me. That interests me is that relationship you have with being present with something, and what scale does to that. So I don't make big things because I think big is better. It's because the scale is actually the medium. Obviously, being shortlisted for anything is a real honour. It is, and it's always an honour to be shortlisted. I think the shortlisting is really important because I have a funny thing about competitions, and because art is not a competitive sport. It doesn't sit nicely in that kind of way. So how you can say that one thing is better than another, it's really, really difficult. But to be in that kind of selection when you've got a whole load of stuff and people have selected it and you're in that final selection, that's always a good thing. But even in a long list, there's hundreds of people, thousands of people that apply. So to stand out and be recognised, that's always a good thing, and be recognised amongst lots of different people, and particularly amongst people who've never actually seen your work. So Cherie was asked to shortlist some artists for a permanent piece of art in the Rower Museum, and based on finding me through the selection process of the prize, so she put me through as one of the artists. She came up with a whole selection of them. So to be in that selection from her, and that it resulted in me actually getting the commission. So I now have a permanent piece in the Rower Museum in the Wonder Lab. So that's the first permanent artwork that they've commissioned, and it's 12 meters tall and 18 meters wide and stuff. So it's and you can walk through it, and it's massive, and it makes an architectural statement. But that was a direct result of coming through that, of just applying. Because I've been in contact with Cherie since she started it. So on my bookshelf here, I have issue number 2. I've followed the rise of the publication and through all its different stages and iterations as well over the years. So we've been doing this about the same amount of time. She started that about the same time as I started an arts organisation in Cumbria. It does sit outside that bubble of London, where everything is, there's a London thing that happens, and by just not being in London just makes it stand out, because you just got a fresh perspective, and you're not in that clique, you're not in the same parties, and so it stands out, and it's coming from a completely different viewpoint. And the fact that it's in York, which is not known for being like the centre of all the cultural things in the world, but by doing something there just says so much about the value of being outside of those centres and taking a distinctly almost independent view of what's going on, completely different view. And I think that's refreshing. It's really refreshing. The thing about the art prize, I don't do art prizes. I really don't do art prizes. It doesn't interest me in the slightest. But they kind of persuaded me to enter, which was nice. But also, it doesn't cost very much to enter. And I think that's really good, because it's not ripping off artists. I think it on a business front, it's hugely good value for money to enter, because even if you pay the full amount, which is like 25 quid or something, and that's 2 artworks for 25 quid, but getting early, you get it for a lot less than that as well. And there's lots of other incentives, and other people have set up bursaries to even pay for your entrance. But what you get out of that, the exposure that you get, and that exposure to people, connections within the art world, outside of that clique, that's London. So there's a whole load of like-minded people. I think it's good. It's refreshing, and I think it's a really good thing to do. It's really good to be part of it. It was really good to be part of the exhibition and be there and meet the other artists and all the other things that I've done at the talks, at the symposium and stuff, and to meet the people there as well. It's it's all done with that way that things are done when you're in York and not in London. And I think it just has a completely different approach, and I think it's a really refreshing approach, and my kind of thing.
Let's move on to the film festival, because this now again is huge, and you were telling me before, this is a BAFTA qualifying film festival, which for York, we're here in York, we're away from the big media cities, we are now becoming recognised as a city where this is possible. So tell me a little bit more about the film festival.
It's exciting. I mean, the way you've just summarized that is just very exciting. It does bring a smile to my face, because it means, that actually I feel like at the moment, anything in York feels possible to me, and that I can't tell you the joy and the extra spring in my step I have with that, kind of very much embodying that feeling. So the film festival, it grew out of the magazine. And that's, so inside the magazine we have, it's an art and culture publication. So there's always been a film section. So we would be writing about films that I would describe as from the heart and of the mind. But in order to get in the magazine, because you got to remember the distribution chain is so wide, the films would have to be released in the cinema, so theatrically. Now, the problem with that is that actually, if an independent filmmaker contacts, run the clock back to 2010, okay? There's no streaming. Vimeo doesn't exist, or it's very new. Instagram certainly doesn't exist. And so if you were an independent filmmaker and you wanted somebody to find out about your film, you had to get written about in, a publication, whether it was a newspaper or a magazine. But we wouldn't be able to write about a film that doesn't have any distribution, because our readers wouldn't be able to see it. So what would be the point? So we always said no. So I had an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if, and a lot of things start with that. Wouldn't it be cool if, we published a DVD, which really dates the time period of this, a DVD of short films with our Christmas 2010 edition. We'll do a cover mount. We'll bring new films to our audiences. We'll organize, it'll be a little prize. We'll organize prize money, training, and screenings at 5 UK film festivals. And, it happened, and that first year we had just under 1,000 films in. Now a DVD is only 2 hours, so what does that mean? It means that basically everybody got rejected, and it was awful. And I set up this organization to support, champion outstanding talent through equality, creativity, and diversity. And I mean, that was our mission statement in 2003, and it still is today. And so by rejecting so many good people, I certainly wasn't fulfilling my own goals and objectives. And so basically pretty much everybody got rejected apart from those 12 people. I felt really uncomfortable with that. But the magazine had to be published, the DVD had to be pressed, everything had to happen. So that happened. January 2011, I was invited to BAFTA to give a talk to filmmakers about how they could work with brands like Aesthetica Magazine. So we're talking about video content production, really. And then at the end of the talk, there was about 60 people waiting to speak to me. I spoke to every single person, and they said the same thing. I sent my film in, you rejected it. Can you tell me why? It was like an audience full of people who'd been rejected from the DVD. Very humbling, very transformative. Spoke to every single person, missed my train, back to York, got another I had to buy a ticket on the spot, got back to York. Well, on that train ride, I said, this isn't working. This is not like, I can't believe the demand for this is so high. What can I do? And then I said, oh, I know. I'm going to start a film festival. York's never had a film festival before. It'll be amazing because we've got all these super cool buildings. People can go and watch films in them. And so the first film festival happened in November 2011. It was extremely difficult. It was 15 venues. I'd never, I don't have I'm very good at running events now, but I didn't have a background in events. And so, the stress was very high, and people in York weren't used to the concept of what a film festival is, or a short film. Is a short film good? Is this something you see on YouTube? I'm like, no, it's like a short story. It's a complete thing. And it's all the different genres: animation, comedy, drama, thriller, fashion, music video. It's really amazing actually what a short film can do. And so, not only do I find myself sort of a champion of independent film, but a champion of independent short film. But of course we've expanded into VR. We're now doing programming games in the festival. It's really, really developed. So, you fast forward the clock 14 years, it's one of the largest film festivals in the country. I can't quite believe it, really. Because actually we're just doing the thing that we love doing, which is actually, having access to so much global talent, and then using our beautiful, amazing city to showcase it. And we bring the world here. It's truly a privilege. I can't believe it, really.
So the film festival, in terms of kind of putting these filmmakers on a global stage, we're talking, this is a BAFTA qualifying film festival, and there have been films that have gone on and won at BAFTA, hasn't there?
Mm-hmm. It's really exciting because since 2020 we've had 18 films that have been nominated for the BAFTAs, and actually 4 that have won, which means that a film that is screened here in York, probably at City Screen, has gone on to win a BAFTA every single year. And the role that the festival, and by extension the city, are playing in actually truly developing new filmmaking talent is extraordinary. That us providing that audience, this place for this to happen, means that people, they're eligible to it, because as a BAFTA qualifying film festival, it means that films that screen with you are eligible to apply for the BAFTAs. So if you don't screen at a BAFTA qualifying film festival, you cannot apply. That's kind of the sort of the big draw for us to have the opportunity to have such, people who will go on and become like, homegrown names, and be working on, the list, we've been doing the festival for 14 years now. There is some very, very amazing success stories that have come out of that. And actually on our website, there's a page called Rising Stars. And if you go through that, you can see just the sheer role that the festival and the city play in actually bringing these people to, great heights. So it really is astounding. It's amazing. It's obviously, we're looking at media arts as film, gaming, visual effects, photography, audio, really anything kind of in that vein. And I think just the phenomenal things that are already happening here, I can give you so many examples of people that I know whose businesses are based in York, who are operating on a global stage. And I love telling these stories because actually, well, what's really interesting to me is the people that I talk to seem very surprised. And I guess that's what we're in the process of changing, because it's like, I don't want people to just be surprised because something, for example, the visual effects studio that do House of the Dragon, the follow-on from Game of Thrones, that they're based in York. People are always like, wow, really? And, you think, well, why not? And I think that that's the moment of change that we're in, that actually, again, the kind of like my mantra at the moment, like really anything is possible. And so, at the moment we're just building that up. But I feel like, it is a culture shift that we're talking about here, where actually it's not a surprise to someone that something amazing is coming out of here. And I think as a city, we need to embody and embrace that. And that's how we will support the next generation. And that's how we can actually, build and lift up the city, but using our UNESCO designation to do that, to leverage inward investment, to help new businesses develop and create a thriving economy and community here that are doing truly amazing things.
So is this what Reignite is all about? It's about drumming up that interest and getting more people involved and showcasing. And like you say, anything is possible. I love that mantra, by the way. Anything is possible. Here in York, we're proving it. So let's all get on board. So is that what Reignite is all about?
Yes, but the main thing for Reignite is, one, it's about providing that stage to showcase, excellence in the city. But it's bigger than that because it's about actually cross-sector working. And so the attendees to Reignite, I want them to be from the hospitality industry. I want them to be from services. I want them to be, education, local authority. It needs, in order for us to truly embrace what it means to be a UNESCO City of Media Arts, everyone needs to come on board and everyone needs to see the significance and the impact of it and how it positively affects and develops all areas of business in the city. And so that, I think, is maybe the difference between maybe some people who've come before me who've really tried to galvanize things, is that actually I'm seeing it as truly cross-sector. And I think that's why Reignite is such an interesting and joyful experience, these events, because actually you're interacting with people maybe you wouldn't normally interact with. So we're not siloed anymore. And I think that that's part of bringing the creative industries into the actual business portfolio of the city. But at the same breath, it's also about supporting and nurturing new talent. So the next Reignite is actually, we're going to be working with the fine art graduates and photography students from York St. John University to actually shine a light on, okay, so here's the other end of the spectrum, which is all these people working on this global scale. We now need to go back to the inception. We now need to go back to the beginning, and we need to champion these young people and let them know that their city is behind them.
When we recorded this interview, Cherie was just about to launch the Creative Business Skills Academy, which is designed to give young people starting their own business insight from creative industry professionals. And you can find out more information all about it at creativeskillsacademy.org.
And I'm super excited about it. So I'm passionate about creative industries, I'm passionate about business, I'm passionate about women in business. And so last year, Aesthetica celebrated its 20th anniversary, and that was a really big moment for me. Like, on a personal note, like, I couldn't believe so much time had passed, and all the things that I'd done along the way, and the good times and the hard times, and, having a child and running a business and all these things. And I thought about myself as the 22-year-old that I was, and I was thinking about how come there isn't an army of young 22-year-old women looking to start businesses in the creative industries here? Where are they? And that was really kind of the inception of this idea that actually, I'm sure they're out there, but maybe they need some support to actually, everything I know, like, I've learned myself in terms of like how to run a company. Like, nobody in my family ran a company. Like, I didn't grow up in this environment. I mean, I guess things would be a bit different for my daughter, but like, there's a lot of trial and error over the years. And so I want to take that knowledge and package it into a course, which is 12 weeks. It runs in the evening because I recognize people will probably have jobs. And so that we're giving the skills and the confidence and the support to say, look, we want you to launch your business. We want to actually, help you to develop your company so you can become the employers of the future here. So when my daughter grows up, if she gets a job in the creative industries and doesn't want to work for me, there would be a place for her to go. There would be a job for her in the city, so she doesn't have to move to London. Like, that would break my heart. So I think the point of the Creative Business Skills Academy is to support, people who have the skills in the creative industries, but are trepidatious about launching a business. And we want to help them to give them the confidence and the skills and the support that they need to do that. So we're working in partnership with the Combined Authority and York St. John University. It's completely free. There's absolutely no strings attached. We really just want to make an impact and make a difference here. When people finish the course, they will then be offered 12 months free rent at the York St. John Enterprise Center, which I think is phenomenal. I wish I had that 20 years ago. So we really, really want to help people to succeed.
What do you think needs to be done in York to further leverage, the UNESCO status, City of Media Arts, and to really kind of make sure that we make the most of this? What do you think needs to be done?
I wrote a 2-page document that answers that question. I did it in 2 pages. I think it needs to be succinct, but really, that's my like magnus opus. And I feel like really we need to look at like all the different layers of or avenues that there are in the city. So we need to look at education. So how do we embed this from primary, secondary, further, higher education? How do we legitimize careers in the creative industry? So, people encourage their children to think, actually, if you study this, there will be a job for you at the end of it. How do we make sure that our events and our exhibitions, how do we make sure that they're accessible, that people know that they're going on, that we want people to attend, that this isn't, this is a city that is actually joined together. We also are very keen, as I've mentioned before, about actually cross-sector working. So actually businesses realizing that actually we all rely on each other to create, an economically viable city to live in. So there's a whole series of different pathways that actually we need to go down as a city to ensure that the UNESCO City of Media Arts designation is, used to its full potential. I was just speaking with yesterday the Bluebird Bakery in Acomb, because they've turned it into an art center, Rise, in the evenings. And I was talking to, they want to develop a film club there, which is great. They want to have a monthly film club, and I'm saying to them, you're doing UNESCO City of Media Arts activity. And actually they weren't aware that we were a UNESCO City of Media Arts. And so that's the thing, is that actually I want everybody to be aware of it and think about, well, how could this benefit you and your business, or you and your family, or your organization? It's not going to solve all the world's problems. It's not going to make, housing more affordable here. It's not going to do any of that. But what it can do is actually, it can support idea generation and innovation, and that can lead to those other things. So for me, I think there's actually absolutely a lot of work to be done still, to make the most of that. But we all should take a sense of pride as York residents in the fact that we live in a city that is one of 25 in the whole wide world that was designated by UNESCO, a global organization, as a UNESCO City of Media Arts. And the impact of that and what it means should not be underestimated, because cities on that list include Toronto, Austin, Texas, which of course have the South by Southwest Festival, Sapporo in Japan have an amazing festival, Braga in Portugal, Viborg in Denmark. There's only 24 other cities in the whole world. And you think, so we are on this list that is saying what you are doing here is on a par with these places. And therefore, we need to really embody what that means. So this year is the 10th anniversary of the UNESCO City of Media Arts designation. It's on the 1st of December, 2024. And so as part of the film festival this year, we are actually going to be running the first UNESCO City of Media Arts Expo, not only a first in the city, but a first in the country, because of course we're the only city of media arts in the UK. What that will be is a showcase and exhibition of all of the fantastic businesses working across virtual reality, game design, visual effects, exhibition design, even graphic design, and it'll be an opportunity for residents and basically everyone that lives in the city to come to the expo and to experience what does it mean. So that's the physical manifestation of what it means to live in a city of media arts. So there'll be loads of businesses. There's going to be talks. How do you break into careers in this industry? People talking about setting up their businesses, and it's going to be a real celebration of the city's media arts status. We're also going to host a Reignite event at it. And it's going to, the plans for it to be a very big citywide celebration of what it means to be a UNESCO City of Media Arts, and you're all welcome to come.